welcome to the Next Canon podcast. Thank you guys so much for coming back and listening every week. My name is Danny Ray, as you know, and today I'm very excited. We have another new friend today. Today we have Ayo Tushinde. Say hi,
What's up, homies? Hey.
Ayo is a Seattle-based actor and activist with a passion for creating art for the stage and creating important change in an ever-shifting world. In addition to being a teaching artist right now, she's worked with a lot of local theaters in Seattle. That's so awesome. How are you doing today, Ayo?
I am great. I'm good. I have the day off from my essential worker job at a grocery store, which is always a good day for me. Like any day I don't have to go there, it's nice. And working that 9 to 5 lifestyle kind of these days.
Yeah, definitely. What grocery store do you work at?
It's called Sprouts Farmers Market. If you like the produce, if you eat the fruits and veggies, go to there. There's one on Aurora Avenue. That's the only Seattle store. But if you want to catch me, I've seen some theater people in there too. And it's hard with the masks because of course I'm masked up. Everyone's masked up. But I've had a couple people be like, oh, did you do this and such? And I'm just like, I forget I'm wearing a name tag. So a lot of times I'm like,
how do you know who I am?
Are you stalking?
Yeah.
No one's stalking me, but it is always fun for me to run into people I know. So if you're into the produce or any kind of health food type things, we got that, homie.
Yeah. I feel like when you're wearing a mask, you feel like no one's gonna know who you are.
Yes,
Like
I do.
I worked at Starbucks for like 6 months, then I said goodbye. And I'm in my hometown, so I saw people I knew from high school, which is like my least favorite thing to do, seeing people unless they're like adults or teachers who I
No,
know.
I feel it.
I don't want to see them. And so I'm like, please don't read my name tag, cover it with my hair. Maybe they'll think I look like someone. I wear glasses.
You're just
now.
like, yeah, what do you want? A Frappuccino or like, what
I'm sure
you
you want the most high maintenance drink. Let me get that for you. But yeah, I feel like you don't feel like they can see you or something. You're like, it
always catches me off guard because it is like, thank goodness I have the acting skills because you got to be on. It's very that life, but for, people who are also in this pandemic with you, and grocery stores are one of the main fun activities we are allowed to do all the time. So
right.
For the now, it's just like, it's mostly, people going through, how's your day? The normal stuff. Think Trader Joe's, but like with honesty, I'm not going into my higher register. Like, I'm not saying they're dishonest. I love Trader Joe's. Don't get me wrong. Snack game on point. They wrap their produce in too much stuff. But as far as customer service goes, that engaging thing, like we try, but also in a setting like that, there's a lot of chemicals, there's a lot of sanitizing after each person and trying to be like, yes, I'm engaged with you. I'm checking you out. Please don't put your stuff down. I'm spraying this while I'm getting their receipt. All right, cool. So this arm is probably, that arm looks pretty ripped.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, the gun show is looking pretty even.
The gun show is really out today. I love.
Okay. I'm bad at it. I hadn't checked in a minute, but I don't do Zoom. I'm bad at it. So if I mess something up later, be ready.
You're perfect. I don't know what you're talking about. So what was like the beginning of the pandemic like for you?
Horrific. As you said, you saw my videos from Whole Foods. And so this time last year, it's been about a year now, which is insane to think about. But I remember that we had like 4 shows left. I was in a show at Cafe Nordo, an excellent lesbian murder show, written and directed by Sarah Porkalob, and just so fun to do. Wonderful cast. And we literally, until the day that we just stopped because all the theaters literally shut down that day, it was like, okay, yeah, we're doing it. We were in our closing week by the time that everything hit. So that was a bummer. And I was also touring with Living Voices, doing the civil rights track, The Right to Dream. And Living Voices is an excellent company to work for. So I would be going to schools mostly during the daytime, then doing shows 5 nights a week at Nordo, which meant that at Whole Foods, when I started at their new store in West Seattle, I was working, part-time. I was like up to 20 hours, but really I only have 10 to 15 to give, willing to be generous because this is, supplemental. And after every theater shut down, it was kind of like this, oh, ow, this pandemic hurts, but it's new to all of us. We don't know what's going to happen. And when I was working there, they knew I was an actor. My managers were on the surface very nice. I do have that. I have a trio of videos about my experience there when I was really going through it. It put me into a very bad mental health space because I was there part-time. They were like, hey, I don't know how many people know this, but Whole Foods is owned by Amazon as of 2017. So working there part-time during my acting things was great because most of my income's coming from art, which is what I have strived for, made happen.
Yes.
And I'm not gonna say 2019 was my year, any year was my year. I think it's always it's a progression, but I was very much feeling my oats. My oats were feeling great. And then everything's shut down. So it's kind of like, okay, let's see here. I worked part-time cutting fruits and stuff for this bougie grocery store, which is fine, but now it's kind of like my only source of income. And they offered me a full-time position. And again, in the trio videos during my actual experience, which is very sad, I cry a lot.
You can get into it. They're on Facebook.
I mean, they are on Facebook. They're on YouTube too. It was traumatic in the moment because I had never, after about almost a decade of working towards this place where I got to be, where most of my income was coming from art, I was shell shocked like everybody. I don't think I'm special because this hit us all in a lot of similar ways.
Right.
But I was always very much like, the reason I'm so part-time this is because my theater stuff, if the agency is like, hey, we have a thing for you, I would need to switch things around. And that was what I was hired. I let them know when I was hired, I was like, my things are going to have to be really flexible because of what I do. They were like, great, it's a new store, we're getting all the people in here. When the pandemic hit, our at-risk employees, our older employees, all pretty much bounced out. And a lot of those were the full-time employees. The coffee bar, smoothie bar, et cetera, shut down, which meant that the people there part-time got some extra hours. Eventually I was offered full-time, but because of COVID, which again, new for all of us, I understand that. They were like, okay, so all part-time employees have the option of being full-time for an extended period. Since Amazon owns it, if you're part-time at Whole Foods, you cannot get benefits no matter what. If you're a part-time employee, there's no option for it. You have to work full-time, or be a part-time employee who works full-time for, I think, more than 3 weeks consecutively. So with the pandemic, of course, and all the employees we lost, I'm happy to show up. I had no other source of income. And I was like, yep, I will take that $16 an hour. I think it was 18 with the hazard pay, whatever.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, they were like, okay, now we have to put all part-time employees back down to part-time, but would you like to stay on full-time? And I was like, well, yes, because that would mean benefits. That was always my standpoint. Right. So I was like, yeah, because if something happens here, then it would be great to know that I can at least go to the doctor and know how fast I'm going to die or whatever, Right. Very macabre, but very honest. And so then I worked a couple months, full-time schedule, and it's not like I had shows to, conflict with it. But the main thing I harped on was that insurance, because as a part-time employee, I had no insurance. As an artist, as most of us know, not generally insured unless you're part of, I'm not part of equity and anything else. So it ended up being this whole thing where after the 2 months, which was way beyond the point where they should have been like, yo, just so you know, never mind. They were like, hey, did you clock out for lunch? I'm like, yeah. They're like, cool, let's just step into the office anyway. I just want to let you know, we're taking away they were giving us a lift, the ride share lift sort of like a voucher up to $30 a day, which is about what it costs once the West Seattle Bridge closed.
Oh,
Also
wow.
at the beginning of the pandemic. We
I
forgot about that because everything else has been
I
going on.
fully forgot about that.
Dude, it used to be a 7-minute drive over there, and then it became a 30-minute commute if you were getting a ride share. I don't know how long a bus would take, but so that was how it would cost me about $50 to $60 a day to go to and from work without that. So I'd been depending on that, and they were like, so at the beginning of June, we're gonna cut that out. The hazard pay is going away, the $2 an hour, and we're gonna knock you back down to 20 hours a week. And they knew, about my acting thing not being a thing anymore. They knew what I thought about the situation I was in. I was like, my understanding was that this was full-time so that I could have the benefits since I'm picking up, and they were like, oh, I'm so sorry, you misunderstood. And of course there's no paper trail, right? And then this ended up being a whole not battle with unemployment. It was all over the internet. I never actually got anybody on the phone, but they eventually gave me unemployment like 5 or 6 months after I applied for it. But yeah, I ended up quitting because it put me into this mental state of like, it was gaslighting. It was just, I have a recorded conversation with a manager about it all. And it was just this whole thing. They were like, okay, so we're cutting all these things out. And I was like, okay, well, you just said you understand I don't have another source of income. And so my understanding is wrong. And they were like, well, yeah, we knew that. So we wanted to give you a chance to find something else if you need to do that. So they knew exactly what they were doing. And I was just like, okay. And that's when my lunch breaks turned into smoke breaks. So,
Oh my
Ayo in a nutshell. I'm just, that's
Lord
the life I led. And anybody who's seen those videos or will go watch those videos will see a very sad little me a year ago. But I'm doing a lot better now. I've learned a lot from that experience, but yes, F the pandemic, but also,
people
the
are
constructs.
Weird, people are weird.
They are.
I hate them sometimes. Like I love people, but I like hate people so much.
Oh no, I feel you. Hard same.
It's like I think it's like artists and empaths get like the rough end of it sometimes, not to like complain, but it's like we receive so openly and we listen. We're trained to listen, and then people are just mean sometimes and we don't get it.
And we don't get why somebody would be so mean, and then if we think about it, we usually do get it. But also like the realizing that reciprocation is never going to be there, of just like, wait, you don't understand why this is a problem. Like that's my mindset. That's my like fight or flight, just like, who raised you? Why are you talking crazy to me? But then I'm just like, oh, right, because like you've not lived anything like this. This isn't a big deal to you, and that's why you think it's not a big deal. I get it. Doesn't make it right, but I understand how you're so confused. That yes, that very bad.
Yeah, definitely. So to sort of like segue into our like topic.
I know, the actual theater stuff.
Theater stuff. Oh my gosh, imagine theater things in 2021 in this economy. Way back when. A year ago to the day. So anyway, what in your theater realm, world, mind, everywhere do you consider to be canon, or what does that word mean to you?
Okay, the canon, as in I cannot. So I had a feeling we're going to end up talking a bit about where I went to school, which was Savannah College of Art and Design. But I dug out all of my, sorry to make it flip like that, I'm very new to Zoom, but I knew this was the moment that I'm going to show you. Yes. I dug out all of, well, not all, but like the ones that I kept of my theater texts that I have not picked up since school a decade ago. But this is what I was taught the canon was. And if you ask me just personally, like, I don't know other than what I was taught. I'm just like, when I hear canon, I associate it with plays of, it's going to switch again, probably. Okay, cool. Let's see. Can we see? Okay. So we've got our Stephen Adly Gurgis, our Shakespeare, our Ibsen, our Shaw, of course. okay, 9 plays of the modern theater. This was a textbook I had to buy.
Correct. Beckett. Oh my gosh.
Mamet, Stoppard, Pinter, and I, you know, UNESCO. A lot of these, like they, in my eyes, have potential, but like still problematic in the way it's presented to me that I paid a lot of money for.
Yeah.
Shanley, yes, of course, more Shaw. Oscar Wilde, gotta have that. We have under Oscar, we got some Sarah Rule, because that was hot when back in my day. Chekhov, which is you know, that's I'm torn, not really torn, I'm just in both worlds. Like that is part of the canon. Yeah. Funnily enough, even in Western, and especially here, because we got Seagull Project, which I'm on the board of. And our Moliere. So I know, I'm saying, like, these are the things that are, you know, that's what I was taught was the canon. Right. So we got our Shakespeare, we got our Restoration, like the corsets and everything. We got a variety of very American playwrights, which generally includes straight white males. You know, Sam Shepard is probably in one of these books somewhere. But it's very oh gosh, and Neil LaBute, cancel please. But like if he's not already, I'm just saying, like, these are the things that they were the new canon when I was in school, which is, I'm getting so old that it was like, it's a decade ago that I was actually in college, but I'm just like, I remember like that all of these things were the thing. You wanted to be an Autobahn. You wanted, all your monologues came from like the same 5 plays. Right. And all the people that got casted were generally straight white people. That does have something to do with where I went to school, but like, yeah. So that's what I know of as the canon. Is it what I think should be the canon? No. And
hence this whole entire all of those like plays were a great representation of what is.
I was like, a visual helps everybody. That's fun. We went on a field trip so.
We sure did, and it was a bumpy ride for all of those plays.
You know, and they're still out here. You know, people are just like, okay, let's do something contemporary, and like, maybe it's just because things aren't changing fast enough for me, or maybe it's because things are antiquated inherently, and it seems weirdly recent every single year of my life, but like also still up. You know what just happened? The award show. The Golden Globes was the most recent one, where they were like, oh, okay, so the Hollywood Foreign Press Association has no Black people. Our bad. Like, literally, it's 2021, and they're just like, oh, you know what, we did miss one thing. and we're gonna do better. But it's just like, for those kind of steps to be taken now, I'm just like, I'm not surprised that the canon is that.
Right. That pile of books. So
it's not bad. I'm not saying the plays are bad. I'm just saying, since it's the same way that history is taught, you know, we learn white history, the white version of history, which is why many people are fine with Black History Month being just February, and then every other month is fine. And we don't call it white history, but that's all that's taught in schools. Some schools opting out of Black history. The same thing applies to theater. We are
parents just their kids out of Black history lessons.
Yeah,
Are you?
I know that some.
So you're actively
like,
racist. Optional. You're really actively racist right now. Yeah. Like in your brain.
Don't call them that, because I'll step to you.
Oh, I don't give a fuck.
No, I know, and you should, you know, like absolutely call them on it. But you're right. It blows my mind in that way.
They'll get mad.
Yeah,
and
I'll say,
nuts. Oh no.
I'm sorry, Karen. I'm sorry, Chad.
Oh,
your child will be the better for it.
If they stay in the class, geez Louise. But yeah, that's a really good representation of the canon. And as we both are very highly aware, there are many shows that have to go. They've got to get out of here or be reimagined. But what's your show that's got to go?
So, okay, there are too many to name, and I'm not trying to be shysty here, and I'm not trying to be evasive. It's just what I've recognized in the entire time I've been in Seattle, and I came here straight after college. I was like, there's so many theaters here. I'm sure I'm gonna like, I'll find my way. Seattle's very white,
right,
as we know. But in my first, I would say like 6 to 7 years here, it was very much like a unlearning of what I learned in school, which was like audition, 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 the same spiel they give everybody so they can take your money, because private art schools be like that sometimes or always. And even though I was never put on a main stage in college, I went to Savannah College of Art Design. I think they changed the name to Savannah University for Creative Careers. So instead of SCAD, it's now SUCK, which is, I mean, that's legit. I'm just saying, but like they did one Black show, and the person directing it, like, can I drop names here? Because I have no.
I mean, it's up to you. You can do whatever you want.
No, I have no qualms except for why I'm in debt for this education that was BS. In a lot of ways, I did learn some great things that I've used, but most of it was unlearning for this last 10 years of my life.
Yeah.
But Sharon Ott, who ran the Seattle rep for a stint before she went to go teach at the school when I was at school there, was the director of the Black play. And it's not called the Black play. They just only do one every so often, not even every year, I don't think. But they did Intimate Apparel, Lynn Nottage, which is great. And I color coded and auditioned for every female role. And after the auditions, I remember that was really the only thing I had a shot at being in. And I knew that, and I was somehow okay with it at that age. I was like, okay, I understand. Like, you know, there's traditional plays and then there's me. So auditioned, did my best. And the next, you know, whatever day after the auditions had happened, I was in the elevator with Sharon, and she told me that I was one of the most prepared students that she'd ever seen in an audition. Cause I color coded and asked to read for every female role. Mm-hmm. And it is a race play. So there are Black roles and there's white roles. And she just let me know that, like, as far as she was casting it, I did not read as either Black or white. So the reason, even despite my preparation, she wanted to make sure that I knew that I was well prepared, which is not wholly lost on me. At that time in my life, I definitely needed some kind of approval, since there were not other opportunities for me other than, you know, lab shows, grad shows, those things, student-driven works. But it was kind of like this justification of like, the reason that you're not going to be cast is because of, you know, you don't read the right way for what I want my audience to see here. And I was like, well, thank you for letting me know. I felt like kind of on top of the world, which is so sad. Because I knew that I was prepared, and to have somebody say that to me is something that I hadn't had before either. But then, of course, in retrospect now, I'm just like, well, ain't that some, you know, like that's I remember such specific things from my college experience, and that is one that I'm never going to let go, because that like led into the struggle of me figuring out my racial identity in a Seattle setting, which Seattle's also very white. Savannah, Georgia, actually a mix, but the people who are paying to go see the school shows also very white. So, and that was also the classical theater class professor I had. And so that's where a lot of things came from, is that sort of world where the normal is white, tall, thin, white, preferably blonde, you know, that kind of thing.
100%. And that's just like, you really had to have that firm stance in a college education play. This, like, you don't look the way I want you to look.
It's not that you're not good. It's
you're great, but
you don't read the right way, which in my mind, you know, I applied to North Carolina School of the Arts for high school. I didn't start acting till I was 14, by the way. That's a fun thing that, like, maybe, I don't know, fun fact. A lot of kids start younger than that. And I was just like, oh, you know, there's like opportunities. So like when I was in high school, I applied there as a potential like summer study program, maybe into their undergrad. And straight up, they asked me after my audition, they were like, so you understand that this is one of the only industries in which people are allowed to discriminate in a way, you know, they phrased it probably differently than that, but they were like, don't you think, not do you think, don't you think your race is going to work against you if you decide to pursue this as a career? And of course, like I was so young and I was just like, no, I think that, you know, the best person for the job will get it done. And I'm very competitive and I'm very, you know, so I'm just like, yeah. And I think if I put the work in, then there's no, you know,
right.
Every play won't be for me. I understand that, but no, the best person for the job will get the job. That was my mindset. That's what, you know, I honestly believed. But they also, I was so oblivious to a lot of the racism I experienced throughout my educational process, which eventually made me a little bit more, I don't want to say woke, but for the people who kind of use that as a relative term, sure, woke for here, and more aware for myself and for other younger artists who are also of color or of a marginalized group, to realize that no, it's not okay just because it's the way it's always been done. Ew.
Well, ew. That's all. Oh, there's more, but you use the easiest.
Ew. Oh no.
Oh my gosh, we're still discriminating against people. Ew.
Like, I thought that was so over. Like, didn't we cancel that? I just yikes.
Yikes. So there's many shows that have to go, and people need to start being less horrible.
We need to yes, and I think because this question is coming up, so I'm trying to, like, I don't know, I don't podcast ever, but like not to jump the gun here, but I feel like as far as the canon goes, it needs to be redefined, because the canon, like, again, as we are taught history in school, what we are taught is white history. That's why there's 2 pages about Trail of Tears, and that's Native Americans. There's a page and a half to 3 pages about the civil rights movement and how slavery's over and all that's done and everybody's equal, right? Right. But like that's what is in the textbooks, usually written by a combination of 1 to 3 white people, and that is what we consider okay to teach. And then we have these, you know, February rolls around and people can opt out of Black history, when I'm just like, you know, maybe just like decolonize your history class, first of all, and also decolonize theater. Because when we are, you know, the fact that this is the canon, aside from, I would say, which I don't even have up here, because we didn't have to read any August Wilson. We didn't have to read, you know, like there's so many options that could be classified as, you know, theater from the same era. I'm not going to say like classical theater, but there were no Black playwrights in my curriculum. We maybe read an August Wilson play, maybe. And then there was the Black play they did that was like so lucky that I was there that year that they did it. And then of course I was not Black enough or white enough to be in it. The fact, like, these playwrights did their work. You know, they did the thing, they deserve to be in the canon, but the canon is so white. Yeah. That's a problem. So decolonize it. That's a thing. It's not like a play needs to go. It's that we need to stop focusing only on this very, very fair prism and look at the other things that were going on at the same time. Yeah. How are theaters supposed to move forward without that, given like all the new playwrights we have right now, which is the other thing, is new works, of course. But, you know, there has to, I would say, like, at least make your curriculum a 50-50 split. If you're teaching theater history, don't do Greeks and Shakespeare and, you know, like in Shaw, like that's great. Do a little bit of that. Everybody gets a corset, and then move on to other things, and make people have to work and feel uncomfortable, because that is the experience for most people of color. Right. You're uncomfortable the whole time you're learning, because you're like, great, I know I'll never be in this show. I know that, like, you know, Sam Shepard was not talking about me. I know that my freshman year, every single freshman did a scene from Raisins in the Sun. My brain could not say that, by Lorraine Hansberry. Yeah. We all did a scene from it, and it obviously, we were like, oh, this is uncomfortable. And everyone, but like, why are we doing it? But also, well, that's the thing. Like, I think knowing what it feels like to be uncomfortable, because so many white actors are like, I've had to do the work. I got the same degree. I've done this and this. And it's like, okay, well, think about that. And then multiply by at least 2 to 5 times the work that you've done, because that's all the digesting that I did in school, learning all the same things, executing them as well as I could, not in front of an audience, of course, because I wouldn't actually be cast in the play. So why would they put me, we're not for the exemplary, whatever, but, getting, the technicality of it done theater wise. You can do that with more than just white theater. You don't need a white play that everybody knows already in order to play a scene. You don't need to, refer back. I mean, and Beckett's great. I think absurdism is awesome, but also the idea of traditional casting was a huge downfall, and why I can't give props to where I went to school. I'm just like, okay, well, here's what happened, and here's what I didn't like about it, which I didn't even know I didn't like until years later, which is messed up. And I think it would have been different if it was, I mean, granted, I didn't have that many African American or anybody of color as far as classmates. I had one mixed race professor in my entire schooling from elementary through college, which is crazy.
That's absolutely wild.
It's nuts, man. And that's why people don't recognize it. They're like, oh yeah, that does sound problematic. I'm like, it doesn't sound problematic. It just is problematic. It is. Own it. Fix it. If you're like, okay, I don't want to color block my season, and this is referring to the before times when we got to pick a whole season, when we got to do all these things.
We got to exist in the world.
Right. But it's like, okay, it's not enough to just be like, okay, we're going to do a Black play that's not Raisin. We're going to do a different Black play, but then also we're going to do an Asian play, and then we'll do like a Hispanic something. It's like, okay, you can color block your season. That's one way to feel like you're diverse, but that's all it is. You're not actually diversifying it unless there's people of color and different ethnicities on your tech team, on your, your management team, on your administrative team, and in your cast. And if you don't know how to direct a Black play, then pick the Black play, bring in a director who's not you. That's one of my biggest qualms in Seattle has been that. I'm just watching all these theaters say they're trying, and on paper, sure, it looks that way, but I'm just like, okay, you can do as much as you can as a white person, be ready for the backlash when there is from actual, Black or brown or any other color of people, and or use that as a learning experience, because we have to constantly be learning how to do better, be better. That's all. We all have to do it.
Absolutely. You just gave me chills, honestly. I was just like, that was really good. So in that spirit of recreation and making something new, what's your show that we should all know?
I think, okay, that gets tricky, because one thing I will say, even though I haven't seen it, I know it was on Disney Plus, but I didn't get to see it. If it still is on there, Hamilton is a great example. It's a great example of how theater is not going to suffer if you deviate from the white narrative.
Yeah.
It will incense white people, white artists included, producers, directors, that whole, the Hamilton casting standards. You remember when that went up, and then people were so upset because they were like, we're looking specifically for non-white actors, and not, we're looking for not you guys, straight cis, white people, just specifically, we're looking for everybody but you. And then people were like, well, that's not racist, dude. That's as close as we're ever going to get to reparations. Let's be real.
Yeah.
So I would say, back to the educational standpoint, it's not one show. It's that it still blows my mind to this day how little I learned. There were not Black playwrights being proffered. I was recommended to do a Toni Morrison piece for my showcase audition in college, but that was it. And it was because I was one of 2 Black people in my class. Yeah. Which is insane. But I think there's plenty of very established playwrights. So of course you want your Susan Laurie Parks, Dominique Morisseau, August Wilson is somewhat in there, but again, I maybe read one play in school, and that was reading, not something that we did scenes from, not anything like that. but you know, expanding it, Lorraine Hansberry, besides Raisin in the Sun, I love Raisin in the Sun, don't get me wrong, but like we have to expand beyond the thing that's safe for white people. You know, Raisin in the Sun is probably the Black equivalent of Death of a Salesman, and I'm just like, you guys can't, both of those are great, they're gems, they will always be here. And move on, expand the horizons. James Baldwin was a playwright, and we don't hear a lot about that in education or on a stage these days. Anna Devere Smith. There's just so many. I'm just like, within 5 to 10 minutes of Googling, you could come up with at least like 20 to 30 or more playwrights within the last 5 years that have had meaningful work in the last 5 years. So I would say all those shows need to be added in. All those playwrights need to be added in, because you end up with a bunch of artists of color who are thirsty for the money, thirsty for the approval, like I was in school, you know, sitting here trying to have somebody be like, you know, we're doing this XYZ play by this white playwright that's a classic, but even though you're what you are, who you are, how you look like, and you're not just the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, tall, thin, white ingenue that we, you know, you can be in it. Even you can do it, because, you know, that makes us messed up enough. That makes us feel special. At least for me. I guess I can only speak for myself, but like when people see me in that way, if I'm auditioning for something that was written by Shaw and somebody's like, hey, call back, I'm like, I'm as good as the white girls, is what that has always kind of been in the back of my head, which is super messed up, because honestly, and blind casting, colorblind casting, that whole thing is a whole other, like, whatever, can of worms, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just do that. Shout out to anybody who's just like, we do blind casting, so we're excluded from this conversation. No, you're not. But the idea that the normal or traditional casting means white or straight, or, you know, anything at all other than just like, this is a story. We are all storytellers. So how dare you use the excuse of traditional or the canon or whatever to justify being so obsolete?
Right.
It's 2021.
I think in season 1, I think the second episode, my friend Anu mentioned Edward Albee ?
Edward Albee?
Yeah, where he was like, no Black people can be in my play because it wouldn't happen. And I was like, are you okay? So even after death, you're just extremely racist. Like,
I mean, dude, when they did the didn't they do the Crucible at ACT?
Oh yeah,
a few years ago, and then the estate of this dead white guy is just like, well, no, we can't have a woman as the role of the judge. So a dear friend of mine, well, no, it's and it's insane. It's just like, no, dude, they're dead. Their stuff is over here. So then fine. You know what? If that's what the estate's going to say, if that's what these dead white guys keepers are going to enforce, then like, don't do those plays anymore. Stop doing the Crucible. There you go. Show's got to go. Crucible, kill it. It's done. It's done, dude. Because think about it. How different would that read if it were an all Black cast? Man, people wouldn't even associate it with what they know of the Crucible. They would be like, ooh, wow, ooh, so heavy. Wow, ooh, gosh, remember slavery? Yeah, wow, wow. And like, that's not what the playwright intended. So you know what? That playwright's obsolete. By Arthur Miller. Like, we don't, like, sure, do it once in a while, figure out a way to reinvent it maybe, but certain things like that, especially if you know the playwright, well, hopefully we're not doing like racist playwrights, LOL, Shakespeare, but like, but like, no, and I love Shakespeare, that's the thing, because there's so much potential to like redo it in a better way, and there's nobody being like, you can't do Shakespeare that way. But like these other people that are a part of the canon, right? If their estate is saying stuff like that would be grounds to cancel a show. But we're in a capitalist society, so I understand why that doesn't always happen.
Yeah. Capitalism, man. Oh yeah, that's a whole different podcast.
Yeah.
We end up talking about it quite often, but it's like, that is a whole, like you just said, can of worms.
Can of worms.
Yeah, some of them, Crucible's got to go, because I hadn't thought about it like that, and that's like, woof. Yeah, shivers.
Hello, woof. So bad. Don't.
Don't do it. And I like read that in high school. Like they made it an assignment to read the book in high
Because it's
school.
part of the canon.
Because it's even a part of the literature canon.
It is. That's the thing. And if you look at the whole, like, okay, and that's the other thing. Because before coming on here, yep. If you look at all the authors in general, whether they're playwrights or just poets or just authors or some mix of anything, most of them are white. And it's not because most of the people in America are white. It's because like this whole country is built on systemic racism, and that's just a fact.
It's mic drop. Like it is just a fact.
Oh, it is. And people don't want to recognize it, but I'm just like, no. Like literally, if I can show you, just look at your reading list on your curriculum in elementary, middle, high school, college, like you get maybe a handful of anybody who's non-white on there. And it's like, okay, you guys didn't even like build this whole country. White people, like decolonize your classroom, please.
My brain literally fries every time I think about all the like history textbooks and like what was taught to literally like all the children of this like country.
Dude, I remember in fourth grade, my history textbook, they put all the vocab words in bold, so you know to write those down, get the definition in the textbook, whatever. Mulatto was one of them. I am mixed. My father's black, my mother's white, so mulatto means a mixed person. So then at some point after learning that lesson, because I'm like fourth grade, I'm like 8, 9, I'm learning. And I'm just like, and I refer to myself as a mulatto. I got sent to the principal's office and written up for using a racial slur. Even though I literally was just like, I'm on my vocab game. Like, this is me. I'm a mulatto. And I wasn't calling anybody else that. And I just remember like stuff like that. Granted, you know,
dude,
hopefully we're leaps and bounds from then. I look young, but like this was like 20 plus years ago. But still, these things that I remember, that's universal. Every person of color, I mean, every person, I think, who went through education and something just didn't hit right, you're going to remember that for a while. So I have most of my stuff's from college. That's one of my elementary school moments where I was just like, I never understood it until way later. And I was like, oh, it's because like, I didn't even know, like, I couldn't justify that like racism was still real. I didn't, you know, took me way later to realize that. But, I never really understood why, but I remember that because I was like, the definition said somebody who's mixed with black and white. And I was like, oh, I'm a mulatto. Go to the principal's office.
It was in your book and they're trying to.
It was a vocab word.
That is like messed up.
I'm saying this is the world we live in.
Oh my God, dude. Jesus Christ.
I know, man. It's messed up. But like that's probably why by the time I got to high school and stuff and college and people are telling me stuff like, you just don't pass either way. I'm just like, no, fair point. I'm like in the middle. I get it. Yeah, cool. Keep it cool. I'll just, let's be over here being in the middle. Like, it's fine. I get it. I'm not, could get a tan. I won't, it's just, it's messed up.
Yeah, that's freaking crazy, dude. Whoa. Did you go to a mostly white elementary school?
Probably. So elementary school, I can't remember that much. I remember there being a variety of people, but I didn't really understand the concept of race at the time.
Makes sense.
I was raised mostly by my white mom, and I feel like I went to a pretty diverse elementary school. I know that I used blue magic in my hair. For all my black people out there, we know what that gel is. It's something you can still lay your edges with to this day, although there's other alternatives now. But like and that I would use stuff like that if I went to go sleep over at my black friend's house or like whatever. But I didn't have a concept of race at that age. I didn't really have a concept of race until college. Like my freshman year, I remember at SCAD, somebody like just let me know probably a couple quarters in, they were like, just so you know, the reason there's not that many black people here is because most of them leave since they are alerted to the fact that they're probably not going to be in a main stage show. Or there's not the same amount of opportunities for them. And I was like, no, thanks for the heads up, but I know my worth. I didn't. I didn't know. I just, I knew I worked hard and I thought that would be the thing. And all it really got me was like, an elevator side chat of like, You are good.
You did a good.
I'm impressed. Not impressed enough to cast you, but I'm impressed enough to let you know that if it were more than one Black play a year, we might find a spot for you, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wild. So are there any shows happening around you right now that you are interested in like promoting, like talking about?
Shows.
Or art pieces, you know.
I would say definitely for anybody who either did not catch May's episode, you got to tune in to that House of SUENOS. It's just it will take you away, and we all need to be away. Even, you know, there's that. I am currently working on little bit projects. I've got a couple schools reaching out to me to like come talk to students about being a professional in the industry, and I'm like, you don't know what you're signing up for, but I will do it. So I'm not working on any shows in particular. Zoom is not my forte. But so May is definitely a good call. I know that Matcha is always doing Matcha Theater Works is always doing a series called 17-minute stories, as well as other things. So tune in, because those things tend to be like short, and they do feature a lot of really great local artists, playwrights, the like. So I would definitely say that. As far as other artists doing things, oh, it's so hard. I feel like I've missed so much because my work schedule at the grocery store tends to just like conveniently be, it was like, yeah, just open on Monday, Tuesday when nothing's going on, and then like work the whole weekend at night or whatever. Yeah. It's not always like that, but a lot of times I find myself getting home and being like, if I were home by 7:30, I could have caught, I know the 3 Scream series happened, but I don't know if it's still accessible on there, that through Peggy Gannon. Anything at 18th and Union, they've been doing a lot of streaming, so I would definitely like follow them on Facebook. 18th and Union is a local venue that, you know, we can't go to, but
it's such a cool little venue too.
It's rad. It's rad. And this is like that kind of collaboration between like streaming, but also doing something in person with the actual performers outside of their bedroom or sunroom or what, you know, that's dope. Since we don't know what's going to go on. Right. We don't know. Yeah. Oh gosh. And then also, so my friend Andrew Creech, he's a content creator, also a local actor, writer, producer, but do follow him. Papa Don't Creech is his handle, and I highly recommend, for a good laugh, for some informative things, and then also just because he's dope.
For some breaking news, one might say.
I mean, you know, it's like, it's good for life. It's like, oh, it's funny because it's true sometimes, but then also it's just like genuinely like funny because it's just highly relatable, highly entertaining, and original content created by somebody who's in our town together. Yeah. So
definitely. Yeah. So my last sneaky question, which you might already know, you might know the question, sneaky, but it's, who would you like to see on this podcast?
All right.
Oh, a list.
Shermona Mitchell, Bob Williams, if you can get her, and I know she's super busy, but Valerie Curtis Newton she's just freaking amazing. So yes, Miss J Woods, Andrew, I already talked about, Rebecca Davis, Shanice Somar, if you don't already know, Kathy Shea, Amanda Ray is also a great one. She's been picking up a lot of new projects, and she's a good friend of mine who, like, she moved to the South for a little bit. She came back, I feel like at the beginning of the pandemic or maybe mid-pandemic, but now she's in cahoots with the Nordo and also the 1448.
In cahoots.
So so that's probably like half my list, but I'm gonna leave it there so that I don't like mix out everybody else that everyone else is gonna suggest. But those are my,
email me that list. Email it to me.
Yes,
some contact.
I will.
Baby.
Yep. There's a wealth of just excellent people. Yes.
There truly is. And this has been such a gift because like I get to meet new people and like I'm not even in Seattle right now. Like I miss it so much. I'm like far away in Spokane.
Don't miss
But
it. It's
like
still mostly gray. Like today
I
there's some
know.
sun, but that's just today.
That's the winter for Seattle though. Like that's
True life.
the sun will come out at some point, like with everything else. But
Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow.
Thank you so much. This has been such a blast to have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
I'm so honored that you were excited to come on and chat with me. So thank you everyone who's listening. This has been a really wonderful time. So I'm so happy that you're here listening. If you made it this far, thank you. Ayo, thank you so much. It is so good to meet and get to chat with you. And we will see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Deuces.